Hi, am I audible to you guys?
Yep, loud and clear.
Sure. So let's begin with the webinar, Vishal.
Great.
Okay. So
So,
a very warm
right.
welcome to everyone who has joined the webinar, and a very good morning to everyone. My name is Mahima Lal. I'm your host for today. So we have a topic of the webinar today, which is learn how to make data-driven decisions. Okay. So basically, I'll be starting with telling you a little about Hero Wired. Okay. So Hero Wired is a virtual education company which is a part of the Hero Group. Okay. So Hero Wired is on a mission to not only reimagine the way we learn, but also build a better and a brighter future. Okay, so we are here to equip our learners with knowledge, skills, and expertise that they need in order to find the success. Okay, so today we are presenting this webinar with Mr. Vishal Nyogi. A very warm welcome, Vishal, to the webinar. So Vishal has a master's degree in business management with 16 plus years of expertise, and he is an accomplished data science expert who has worked on multiple disciplines such as retail, CPG, and digital advertising across the US, UK, and Asia Pacific. Plus, we also have Aditya here. He is from our services team, who is an integral part of the Hero Wire. He will be helping you out, guys, in order to answer all your queries related to the placements and career related queries. So we'll be beginning with the webinar. Okay, so moving forward, also we have some polls into this webinar. Okay, I'll be posting some polls, and I request everyone to join the poll and put down the polls, and we'll be discussing about the outcomes of the poll as well. Also, we have a Q&A section. Okay, so during this webinar, if anybody have any sort of query, doubts, you can put down your questions in the question answers box rather than putting into the chat box, because it might get skipped in the chat box. So make sure you're putting your questions into the chat in the Q&A section. Okay, so without any further ado, I would like to hand the webinar over to Vishal. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Mahima, for the introduction. Good morning and a very warm welcome, each and every one of you. So before we begin this session, I go ahead and share my screen, go through the PPT slides and explanations. Quick round of introduction. So how many of you, so I don't want each one of you to introduce, but if you just can give me a thumbs up with respect to your awareness about data science, business analytics, any subject of that sort, and what brings you here. So you can keep posting your comments, right? And just for us to know you better, right? So what's your background and what brings you here today? You can put it in the chat window, and as I go along, I'll just take a look at those comments. Please let me know if my screen is visible. The poll question is up, so please go ahead and share it. I think this is exactly what I was looking for, so thanks, Mahima. Shall we just wait for them to complete the poll, or shall we get going? Wow, so Arjun is a business analyst who is in the management consulting industry. Great, Arjun. I hope you find this session really useful. All right. Is my screen visible to all of you? Okay, I'll take it as a yes. Great. So agenda or session outcomes. So for today, the major thing that we are going to cover is on the awareness and overview side of things. Okay, why analytics is important, what are its applications in modern era business. So I'll pick up a few business domains, and I'll try to delve a little deeper, not too deep, because in the interest of time, it won't be possible for us to delve in one particular domain and get into a subject, because trust me, each one of them are disciplines by itself. Okay. So what we will do is we'll try to understand some of the major application areas across domains, and then in those domains, in those applications, how do the fundamental learning, how does data science, the elements of data science actually figure out? So that is something we are going to understand. Different types of analytics. So what are the different types of analytics that is there? And most importantly, the word analytics, right? So what does that at all mean? Okay, analysis is something that we all are familiar with since our school days. We have done it multiple times. But what changes when I call it as analytics? Analyze how different types of analytics pave the way for decision making as well as problem solving. So end of the day, we are going to solve problems for the business, for the industry, for researchers, for a lot of other areas, right? So how does analytics as a discipline literally help us in doing so, right? So it is just a reiteration with a little bit of more detail, the different sources of data for carrying out analytics we will get into there. Let me just quickly jump into the major part. What is analytics? And I expect questions to be put in as and when we go through, and I'll take those by the end of the session. So what is analytics? The art and science of identifying or discovering novel insights from large volumes and varieties of data using mathematical and statistical models to support more accurate and timely managerial decision making. A lot of stuff, and I'll spend some time here. The very first thing, art and science. So what do I mean when I say it is an art and it is a science? It is a science that's absolutely goes without saying, because it involves a lot of mathematical statistical intervention. It involves the usage of technology in the form of tools, in the form of different storages, in the form of hardware, software. Lot of usabilities are there. Now the question is, why is it an art? To begin with, statistics can help you curate your lives. How? It is as good as saying that, okay, the average income of India is, let's say, $1,000, 1,000 USD. Now that is true in some way, and that is false in probably the larger way. So it depends how and why am I portraying something the way I'm portraying something, right? So analytics as a discipline tries to borrow from every nook and corner of subjects, disciplines, and tries to bring forth what probably is a justifiable way of absorbing it. So any and every kind of data-driven decision making, it starts with the data storage, right? So the very first thing is the data storage. Now, if I just try to understand within the data storage, how does data get stored? That is the fundamental question. We all know about data. So there are various, so consider these to be various types of containers or boxes. You don't need to know what is ERP in detail unless you already know it. Or let's say in operations, what is POS? POS is a short form of point of sale. And then you have a bucket called social data, web data. Trust me, there are tons of other buckets which is absolutely impossible to fit in this slide itself. If I just want to put in the sources of data for one single slide is not enough. So this is just a demonstration as to if there are different types of data sources and there has to be some storages, some containers to store them. This is how it would look like. Okay. So these are the various shapes and forms data gets stored. Now, what do I do with this? This is the raw piece, right? This is the entire raw material. This raw material goes through a processing, a summarization, some kind of cleansing, which eventually translates into information, right? So as we know, information is important because basis information you can arrive at some knowledge, right? So information is never equal to knowledge. So whatever we see in a Wikipedia, whatever we see on the pages of Google, had that been enough, in today's world, you didn't require any medical colleges, any educational institutions. We all could have been self-educated just by going through the Google Sheets or the various links. Those are useful informations for us to process, and then let literally figure out what is the justification of those informations, what are the pros and cons, what is the level of accuracy of those information, so that I can absorb to some extent, which means then again there is a certain amount of filtration that is happening, and that is why we call it relevant. So if you ask me, most of it is junk while a very handful of it is really useful. How do I arrive at selecting those handful? This is exactly why it is an art and the science, right? So then when you arrive at your knowledge, as in you know a particular subject, a particular discipline, a particular phenomenon, that means you are quite aware about from start to finish, what did it take in order to arrive at a conclusion. So wisdom in this case, if you ask me, it is nothing but a conclusion that I would like to arrive at for any certain event that is happening around me, right? If you just think about it, right from the moment we wake up in the morning till the time we go to sleep, there are multiple data points that we, each one of us generate. If I start to note down each one of those data points, it would actually start to look like this, right? So analytics is no black magic. It is not a magic wand which all of a sudden arrived and solved all the world's hunger. Never. It will never do that. It has never done that. But in reality, this is how it would practically look like. Logically try to arrive at a knowledgeable solution wherein you can take a responsibility of it, right? The second is on novel insights from large volumes and varieties. Very important. Large volumes and varieties. What do I mean by large volumes? Just to take a quick example, as we speak, probably the number of likes that has gone into Facebook across pages must be more than 1 million. The number of tweets that has happened as since we have started, probably it is just 5 to 6 minutes. It has almost getting to a stage of 1 million across the globe. I'm talking about varieties. So I was just talking about social media. Imagine the number of transactions that has happened across the globe. When I say transactions, it could be banking transactions, it could be any kind of monetary, non-monetary transactions that has happened, which means the volume and the variety of data that has already been generated. If I had the ability to store it, I believe this is probably not enough, right? So it actually gets generated each and every moment. Novel insights. Now I will come to the novel insights. Why do I need novel insights? It's as good as saying the cancer patient is going to survive for another 5 months. Now, for a doctor to say that, it is equally painful for him or her to literally absorb it. Because now that the doctor has diagnosed the patient to the best of the available technology, expertise, and everything, he or she, the doctor, literally knows what would it take for the patient to survive for another 5 months. It could be even lesser or probably a week or two more. But given the condition, this is where I have arrived at with all possible considerations. And those considerations are backed by solid data understanding, solid data analysis. Okay. Using mathematical and statistical models. This is the very first thing that I have mentioned. And this is probably the crux, that we always tend to believe that mathematics and statistics are going to tell me the exact thing. There is no exaggeration. And there aren't any exaggeration until and unless your art literally overtakes the science, which is never the case. And that is why people like us, the enthusiasts of business analytics or data science, are required. Otherwise, had everything been left to the freedom of machine to decide or some people just to play around with stuff, it would have literally happened the other way. So education in this particular front is super important. Awareness is super important. And taking or using these mathematical or statistical models to the best of their abilities is also of prime importance, right? To support more accurate, when I say more accurate, in statistics, there is a terminology which we call as epsilon. And there is a company, there is an organization, I don't know if it is still there, which was also called as epsilon. Now, if you ask me what does this epsilon mean, this epsilon is nothing but the degree of error. This is actually the degree of error, which means for anything and everything that we say, we predict, we forecast, we try to optimize, we try to do all sorts of things, there is something to do with this degree of error. End of the day, we are human beings. The machines are created by us. The algorithms are created by us, which means it is prone to incorporate knowingly or unknowingly some amount of error. So essentially, this is exactly your starting point. So if I know that there is some degree of error, the job for a business analyst, data scientist at any shape and form would be reduce, or probably a better word is minimize error. The better you are at minimizing this particular error for any kind of analysis of events, you are a better data scientist or a business analyst, because you are actually trying to bring forth more information and less of junk. So that is going to help me on timely managerial decision making, which means the ship, the freight services is literally waiting for you to publish your report, your analysis, basis which probably there is going to be an entire course correction. The way the stock market prices are being analyzed, probably it will start to take a nosedive if you do not produce the right kind and on the right time. So this is again another important aspect. So each and everything, it cannot go on and on forever, right? It is never limited to a academic rigor. It is backed by industry time and industry importance. Moving on. So now that we have got some understanding about what analytics is, given that it's a blend of art and science, it requires mathematical rigor, it requires timely intervention, publication, and discussion. Why the sudden popularity of analytics? If you ask me, analytics was there and analytics will be there for long. It started close to 40, 50 years back, to be very honest. Since World War II, even it started before World War II, if you ask me, during the Great Depression. Now, the popularity, as in a certain phenomenon to gain popularity, takes time. To arrive to the Far East, to countries like India, China, Southeast Asia, it took some time. But now that it is here, we need to understand, what does it take? Can I do this? And what change or what conflict management that I need to be aware of when I'm talking about analytics? What is the tectonic shift that has happened over the years because of popularity of analytics, right? So for need, it says that success depends on businesses being agile. I'm pretty sure most of us here have used this word agile multiple times in different shape and form with different connotations. But here, agility literally means that you have to be on your toes in terms of taking decisions. In today's world, decisions are taken very fast, right? When you just open up your Amazon app or your Flipkart app to buy certain stuff, you have a plethora of opportunities, options to select. For that particular seller to sell through that particular product, it has a very short time window, in microseconds to be very precise. So that particular seller needs to make an impression in your mind just so that you select, or you happen to select at least in the cart. If not, you end up buying it, right? So that is the extent of agility we are talking about. And if that is the example of digital world, even in the physical world, let's say in the manufacturing heavy industries, without agility, it is impossible to cater to, let's say, a 5,000 automobile, a new model that has launched, and the booking is already at 5,000 in week one. I literally need to cater to that demand at that pace, because the customers have booked it basis a certain assurance of, yes, the delivery will happen at some point of time, and this is the time window, right? So the assembly line, the entire engineering, the R&D, everything has to be spot on. Super important. Managers must make the best possible decisions quickly to respond to market-driven forces. So market-driven forces, if you ask me, it encompasses all the macroeconomic global phenomenon that is happening. So if you are taking a decision to, let's say, buy a house or a car, you are well aware about your surroundings in terms of the financials, in terms of the economic situations, the state of affairs. You are aware about everything. Otherwise, a decision as big as buying a house or, let's say, buying a car for any middle class families, it takes a lot, right? Availability and affordability. So technological advances and the affordability of software and hardware enabled organizations to collect tremendous amounts of data. Back in the 80s, for an Infosys, the then startup, to buy a 10 MB storage, they had to ask for central government support commercially, plus how to do the shipment, the entire logistical aspect. Because IBM had to ship that 10 MB storage in a ship to India. And today, 10 MB doesn't even resonate with us. Forget about our kids or for the next generation. What does 10 MB mean? We talk in TBs, we talk in zettabytes, petabytes, right? So this has been the technological advancement. Now, when I talk about technological advancement, it comes at a cost. Easiest example, if you ask me, just imagine the kind of defense systems that India has as of today versus the defense systems that we had during, let's say, 1999 when Kargil war happened. I always take this example because I truly and I honestly believe, had we been indigenously developing stuff, we would have been much, much ahead than on being dependent on somebody else, in this case, the Western countries, right? So there was a factor of affordability, which is super important. Can I afford to do this? I long to buy a BMW or, let's say, even a private charter plane, but probably I cannot afford it. Similarly, for technological advances that are happening, probably not each one of the organizations in India are ready to absorb it. But in some shape and form, if you ask me, in today's world, there is scope, there is opportunities, there are options that's available for us to go ahead and do it in our own way. And that is why you see a plethora of startups where you do not see a suite of offerings, but a very specific niche offering. Taking the example of Ola or Uber, when they all started, they just wanted to digitize and commercialize the entire cab booking system. How to book a taxi using technology. Uber, as we all know, they don't own a single vehicle, right? So they are just the technology service provider to a, and being the aggregator, technological aggregator of the entire cab system, right? Coming towards cultural change, shift from old-fashioned intuition-driven decision making to new age, fact-based, evidence-based decision making. Super important, and this has, if you ask me, old-fashioned intuition driven. It is like, to me it seems something is going to happen, XYZ is going to happen. This it seems, this entire phrase has gone for a toss, and thanks to this particular fellow, agility. So in today's world, if you ask me, for any technological conversation, even within an organization, if you are part of any technology organization, you will get to do meetings which lasts not more than 5 to 10 minutes, where we call it a stand-up. Trust me, I have been into stand-ups on multiple occasions, and I got to speak hardly for 25 to 30 seconds. Why? Because the only expectation from me was to tell what is going on, what is not right, and what is absolutely on the verge of release. These are the three things, three sentences, not more than 25 to 30 seconds, 10 seconds each, and you are done. Which means you just cannot assume that, yes, I have to talk history in front of people with a lot of time. Nobody has time. You have to be precise. You have to be specific, and you have to be focused on what you are doing, why you are doing, what is not working, what is working. Done. So from intuition driven to absolutely fact or evidence based, nobody is going to trust us on our face until and unless they see things happening. So in today's world, each and every case study, each and every demonstration that we do with the help of technology, we always say that this is what it is because these are the things that actually helped it happen. And these are the things it did not help, right? So that is why we need to understand why analytics is getting such a huge accolade, applause from across the globe. This is a small anecdote, if you ask me, about how can you literally understand that analytics really played a role in some shape and form. Now, this is an example from the US. This guy is called Polestar Nate Silver. If you ask me, he was called Polestar, but Nate Silver, in reality, if you just Google him out, he's one of the very famous statisticians who is also a writer. He has been into the media industry for long, and he was actually known. The reason he was called a pollster is because he was very interested in doing exit polls, right? So in today's India, when you see multiple news channels coming up with exit poll results, having tons of discussions, graphs, something going on the upswing, something on the down. So we owe a lot to this particular academician, if you ask me. So he was not just a guy who used to mumble things. He himself knew mathematics really well, right? So he just predicted something, and then basis that he could figure out that one particular decision. I'm not going into the details of what this exact analysis meant and other stuff because that is not the purpose. The purpose here is to highlight how data and analytics historically has swayed things from where it were to where it actually belong, right? So Silver weighted the polls according to the soundness of the statistical techniques of a survey and its historical success in predicting the outcome of an election, which means he did everything right in the most academic way. Now, when 2016 presidential election happened, the poll of polls approach did not work. Most forecasters far underestimated the probability of a Republican victory. Just assume it or relate it to any kind of election that is happening in India. So some respondents did not reveal their support of the Republican nominee when asked by pollsters, which means when these exit polls literally happen, there are multiple media agents or agencies who literally start to go to the villages, tier 2, tier 3 cities from where actual information, let's say who polls, right? Who goes for a poll? Most of the villages, the cities in India are only handful. If you look at the population, the ratio of population of big cities, metropolitan cities versus the tier 2, tier 3 cities, the small towns, the villages, it is always going to be skewed, much skewed towards the latter part, right? So if they start to refrain from providing their input, then you are actually incorporating what we call as a biased approach. So it is already a biased approach. So no matter how sound is your statistical technique, how beautifully done is the analysis, the entire data, the raw data basis which this entire thing is done is biased, which means, as I said, statistics can lie. So this is super important for all of us to recognize it, appreciate it, and be mindful about it. Okay, whenever we are doing it. So you are learning certain things because you want to do a practice in the right way. And if you notice any kind of untrustworthy stuff, anything which is not probably correct, this is because you are there, you should be able to highlight it, right? So the forecasters failed to appreciate that 2016 election had qualitative attributes that made this election unlikely to follow the predictable results of past elections, which means historical dependence is great, but you also need to ensure, or you have to be mindful, that time has evolved, and so has people, so has the surrounding aspects. And if you do not take that into consideration, then probably you are unknowingly incorporating bias to your analysis, right? So this is where we all have to be super critical and super focused. Now I'm going to spend time on certain aspects, as I mentioned in the very beginning, that these are going to be some of the areas where we would like to understand that, okay, I heard you so far, Vishal. Looks like analytics is kind of an interesting subject to learn about, talk about. But tell us, where are the applications, right? So I happen to belong to, let's say, a finance industry. It could be healthcare, it could be logistics. We have a few more, and there are tons of other domains which are not possible to cover within this particular webinar. But just start to think about your own area of work, and I will be really happy to have some questions from your own area of work with the application of analytics. We can really have a conversation around that. Moving on, starting with finance, fraud, and risk detection. So anyone who has brushed shoulders with the banking and financial industry, insurance industry, you will appreciate the fact that there are two major divisions that works. One being the retail system, and the other within that retail system, which is probably the most important, is the risk and regulatory governance. Now, for the risk and regulatory governance, they are kind of the demigods who literally dictate what has to be done, what cannot be done from the banking system perspective, something that we as retail customers do not get to see or do not get to understand directly. Only when you go and ask for a loan, you are told that, okay, give us 4 days time, submit all your documents till then. After 4 days, we are going to tell you whether, question number one is whether you are eligible for a loan or not, the yes or no. If yes, what is the amount that you are eligible for? Say, for example, I asked for 1,000 rupees, probably I am only eligible for 800. So why and how did they arrive at this number 800? Super important. So we as business analysts, data scientists, we need to know what prompted this decision. Okay, what are the backend things that's happening? The other aspect being the fraudulent part. So there are anti-money laundering organizations set up within this banking system, within this financial system. You talk about State Bank of India, you talk about Bank of Baroda, you talk about HDFC, you talk about any multinational bank. Each and every banking and financial systems, they have their own department where AML, anti-money laundering, any kind of fraud analytics, everything is being dealt upon, right? So in all, there is a solid mechanism. And if you ask me, the application of analytics actually started from in a commercial form with the banking and financial services industry, and not with the other industries, because that is where the richness of data was very high. Number one, availability and affordability of data was very easy, and the change of culture was much needed because you are dealing with raw cash, which means the amount of risk that you are already dealing with, it required to minimize that risk. And that is why they were the front runners in the true sense to do a commercial viability check of analytics applications, right? The next best is healthcare treatment optimization. In today's world, I'm pretty sure all of us, if not, shall I say all of us or most of us, at least order medicines online, right? So when you are actually ordering medicines online, you are booking for, and we have all been used to this post pandemic, just to book a doctor appointment over a phone call or through an app. It could be Apollo 24/7. It could be anyone, right? So when you are doing that, what are you ending up doing? You are actually providing a data point to that particular service provider through that app, through that phone call, right? All those things are adding to the database, which means the plethora of information gets stored in a logical manner, which we call it as database, where multiple different disciplines of data converge for us to analyze, right? So when you think about patient flow as well as the use of equipment in the hospitals, that literally highlights that all my pathological reports, all my vital statistics that the physician had asked for is actually being stored in the system. In nowadays, there is hardly a requirement for you to carry a physical copy. We hardly carry anything. We just walk up to the clinic, we just go and say, this is my patient ID, this is the name, this is the phone number. The rest of the stuff can easily be generated, can be furnished if you are already a registered customer, because the very first thing that is asked when you are a first time visitor for that app or for that clinic or for that hospital, are you a registered patient? If not, then please register, which means from now onwards, even if you do not visit me very frequently, which I definitely not want, whenever you visit, I will have your records stored. I will have it handy. You do not need to bother about it. So that in itself has catered to the optimization of the entire treatment system, right? So this is what healthcare benefited from. I can talk about pharmacy or pharma care in a different way. It would again take some more time, but within the realms of healthcare, pharma is another component. Organizations like Novartis, Sun Pharma, or Dr. Reddy's in India. So I'm going to talk about India. Everybody has a very robust business and data science teams in-house. Okay. Moving on to the logistics operation efficiency. Now think about it. We all use Zomatos, we all use Swiggy's to order our food. We all use all possible stuff. It could be a porter to ship something. Dunzo, we actually call it a Dunzo. Dunzo me this, which means it has already been a word, right? So you're already actioning upon it. So all these logistics organizations, they need to know one fundamental thing, right? So even if the restaurant produces the best in class food, but if the restaurant takes, let's say, an hour to ship me the food and I'm really very hungry, I would literally try to avoid that restaurant. I'll try to go for a plan B, plan C, which are far faster. The quality of food may be a little low, but I can still do with it. I can live with it if it is shipped faster, right? Which means speed is the need of the hour. So that requires us to understand, how do I optimize routes for shipping, the best delivery time, most convenient means of transport. We get to hear this even in newspapers. You get to see that a customer or a prospect has literally slapped a Zomato delivery boy just because he or she was late, right? We get to hear this, but trust me, it is never easy. Algorithms, science will do its part, but then here comes the art. So in reality, it will show that this guy has shipped everything with this much accuracy within this time frame with a customer feedback of so and so, which means he's a fantabulous person in terms of delivery. But now just imagine what is at stake for this kind of people, right? So when they are in action, they are actually on the field, they are delivering that particular stuff, they have to risk a lot of things, right? So there has to be a balance. So for organizations who literally do this kind of optimization stuff, they also have some degree of risk incorporated, some degree of error, which probably they would not reduce because they know that if they reduce it even further, the system can still absorb, but a human resource may not. Which means it is good to show that yes, it will take 40 minutes of time. If you literally want it, it will take 40 minutes, even though I know probably 30 or 25 minutes is at max required, given the route, given the traffic, given the food ordering, each and everything. So that buffer, to include that 5 minute buffer for each and every delivery, gives enough for that particular delivery boy or the delivery partner to save some time overall throughout his day. Okay. So this is how operational efficiency in a nutshell is literally created. So I spoke about the human implications while talking about the technological advancements. So it needs to be balanced every time, and that is why art and science. Okay. Insurance and risk management. If you just think about it, if I want to apply for a term insurance, something that, let's say, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan has for his family, will I be eligible, first of all? And even if I'm eligible, what is the premium that I need to shell out? Which means probably I can still have the money, but the amount of verification, the amount of background check that will go on for me to apply for it and literally get it is humongous. So each and everything goes through scrutiny. Each and everything is subject to question. And at every point when these things come up, you are churning out more and more data. It could be for the customers, it could be for a region, it could be in general for the number of accidents, health hazards, each and everything that is happening. And insurance organizations literally thrive on these kind of data sets, these kind of information available, convert that into knowledge while designing a new product, a new insurance scheme. Life Insurance Corporation of India, Oriental Insurance, our state-run insurance organizations, plus the private organizations, everyone has a very stable claims analytics, risk analytics system within the insurance purview. So risk management you saw in banking system, and fraud you are seeing it in insurance. Both have very different implications, but the larger goal is still the same, right? How do I minimize the risk of the losing money? Web search optimization. I can see a quick comment. Let me just look at it. Hey Mahima, I'll probably take another 5 minutes and then I'll be done. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll just take 5 minutes. So web search optimization is again another aspect of the digital world. Okay. So in the digital world, there are tons of things that is happening. You search in Google, the very first letter that you search it for 10 times. The 11th time, the first one or two letters of that search is going to come up. Right. So that is really an outcome of how you do optimization using web. Transportation traffic congestion, I spoke about it briefly in the route optimization for our Zomatos of the world, the logistical part. So this is again a connotation to that, right? So there are different ways we can literally do it. Now, if we are thinking about, there are different cases that we are trying to deal with here. One being the Uber, improving the customer relationships. Just think about it. How do I ensure that more and more customers throng my app, they use it, they literally keep on booking stuff? What does it take? So there is a service provider called Salesforce, and it's a very well-known service provider, if you ask me, in the digital world, where most of the data gets analyzed, stored, and they offer cloud services as well, where Uber relies pretty much on Salesforce in order to store their data sets and getting analyzed. So applications, Uber is one such example. Fraud detection automation, I'm pretty sure you followed through whatever I've spoken about it. So there are certain targets to reduce or minimize the fraudulent activities. That is also going through a sea change in terms of technological advancements. So applications are up plenty. Netflix, I'm pretty sure all of us here do use it very often. They use all the state of the art technologies available in order to produce and bring forth the most valid content for us as individual users. Clark's is a shoes retailer back in UK and US, where they also try to literally figure out how employee engagement, so within the organization, how can employee engagement bring forth increase in incremental business. So the correlation between incremental business and employee engagement, they established it. So this is one of the cases that has shown that 1% improvement in engagement rate to 0.4% in business performance. So there are different ways you can solve data. So there are multiple such things that we can think about. You have raw data, you have, let's say, different kinds of information. How do I process it? End of the day, this entire problem solving. So these are the slides. These slides literally talk about how can different types of data be utilized, broken down, analyzed, cleaned, just so that you can process the right insights at the right point of time, right? This is an output of Excel. Most of you, I'm pretty sure are conversant with Excel. If not, these are some of the functions, formulas that we use in Excel just to arrive at what you want to do, what is the data type, and what is the software that I'm using. So it could be Google Sheets as opposed to Microsoft Excel, right? So this is how, this is again another formula VLOOKUP. So you are just trying to look up a certain value, you can only get that. So problem solving using data, this is like a software. Excel, Google Sheets, these are the softwares I'm trying to leverage in order to arrive at these precise information that I want to solve. So this is all the examples that we are trying to go through. Now, why didn't I spend a lot of time here? Because it would take more time to go in depth about Excel or Google Sheets or how calculations are done, which is never the purpose of the webinar, but to give you an idea as to what are the different ways and means that you can literally use it. Just to quickly recap, so you identify the data sources and types requisite for the analytics problem, recognize the level or kind of analytics and knowledge of its desired outcomes, decipher the business problem and resolve it using data, which means at each and every step, you start with the problem identification, you recognize the need of analytics, what kind of thing needs to be done, and then the outcome, then the interpretation, which is the deciphering part. So can we quickly just get these, which of the following statements are true? And probably we are done. You can put in your options in the chat window once you have read through, and then I'll hand it over to Mahima back. Let me know if we are done. All right. Great. So I'll stop sharing for now. And Mahima, all yours.
Thank you, Vishal. That was a wonderful session. Okay, so if anyone have any questions regarding this webinar and you would like to ask more or know more, so you can drop down your questions into the question and answer box rather than putting into the chat box, because your question might get skipped. So if there's any questions or queries that you would like to know more, you can put it down in the Q&A box. Anybody, is there any questions or queries that you would like to get answered? If not, then yeah, we might end the session. So it was a great session. Okay, we have a question here. Okay, so Bablu wants to ask why Hero Wire joined for data analyst. Why he should join Hero Wire in order to learn data analyst. So who would like to answer this? Vishal, do you want to answer this?
I will take it. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So thanks, Bablu, for asking the question. If I interpret it right, it's like why me as a learner would like to join Hero Wire to learn about data analysis. Well, Bablu, there are plethora of options available outside. Most importantly, the free options that you get to see in Google through different mediums. There are three things that I am going to highlight today. The very first thing being, we believe in live interaction and live lecturing to the extent of 3 hours that we spend over the week ends. And today, as I speak, I'll be joining another class with my set of learners who are going to stay with me live for 3 hours, asking their questions, learning about certain stuff. That is one. Second, we also take questions and answers queries very seriously. So there are different ways and means to reach out to the faculties for people like us, and a learner faculty interaction is pretty much considered and given the prime importance. And the third most important aspect in terms of employability, or how do I make myself employable, who can help me out in that? Aditya is here with us. He can probably share his 2 cents around that. So that is also something Hero Ward literally takes it very seriously. Yes, Aditya, if you can just add on to something.
Sure. Thanks, Vishal. We have a very triangulated approach towards the overall skill upliftment and career progression for our learners. One part absolutely being uh, faculties where we have experts like Vishal who helps the learners in understanding the concepts and getting things cleared. The second triad being the career services team, where we try and prepare you guys for the overall exit into the market. We hold regular gap analysis tests. We have one-on-one coaching sessions. We keep on conducting industry relevant capstone projects, which helps. We directly get projects from industries and give it to the students so that it it helps you guys being industry ready. And the third part is our corporate relations team, who are in constant sync with the industries and keep on generating demand and supplying learners to the same. So all of these three departments, corporate relations, career preparedness, and academics, work in pretty much coherence, where the feedbacks of one are passed amongst the two, and it helps in the ultimate aim of getting the student placed as quickly as possible. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Aditya. So we have one more question. So Anish is asking, do we require coding skills to enter into data analytics? So Vishal,
No,
do you
you
want to take
don't.
this question?
Yes, yes. So Anish, feel free to reach out to us for a course called Accelerated Business Analytics and Data Science, where we are teaching things ground up. Even we start with Excel basics. So the formula you saw on screen for some of the slides, we literally try to teach it live, and there are multiple practice sessions, multiple exercises that we give to our learners to literally be a pro at it. And when we teach coding, we do the same thing, right? So things you don't need to know stuff to apply for it. Just go ahead and apply. We'll take care of the rest. I see another question from Richu Edakulathur. Being from
Vish,
pharma background,
Vishal,
yes,
I'll
yes.
take
Go
these
ahead,
two.
Aditya.
These are pertaining to, I
Go
think,
ahead.
careers.
Go ahead. Go
So,
ahead. Go ahead.
from what I see, the two questions of Ritu and Bablu both are almost on the same track of the fact that there is a difference in terms of background, and how do data analysis comes into picture, and how can you shift into from the non-IT background, with the last leg being different, where Bablu is asking if he can uh, if we can implement data sciences, and implement it in the automobile sector. So, first of all, we know, to answer the question, that even if you have a non-IT background, we it doesn't matter to us. As I mentioned before, the three pillars, all of them work on focusing on creating a meaningful transition in the career. If even if you don't have an IT background, and if you have joined the course, just attend the classes, complete the assignments, finish the projects on time, and you will have a field change in career when it comes to your career. The domain will definitely get changed, even if you may be from pharma background, you may be from automobile background. In case if you want job in a pharma background only or in the current background, then also we'll arrange the same. We will keep on providing you opportunities based on your current profile or on the another domain or the domain specific knowledge which you are taking off. So for us, the the journey of placement starts the moment you join the session. You start taking part in our program. It doesn't matter to us what you have done in the past. When we start placing you guys, when we start bringing companies for you, it will be on the basis of what you have done till now in the course and how you can get the how much you can implement the same, which is why I always say, if in case if you guys join and I have a career session with you, I always say that the capstones which we have are my cornerstone and the most important part in getting the learners placed. Because what happens is, even if you may have a arts background, you may be having a medical background, you may be having whatsoever non-relevant to the specific domain background. But what happens is, if you have learned and you have implemented the skills you have imbibed in your project, in your capstone, then I can go ahead to the companies and tell them that, okay, the learner has learned whatever he or she has been taught, and if he can implement it in our projects, which are coming from the industry only, then definitely he can or she can join your company also. So to answer this, whatever questions Richu and Bablu had, yes, the domain changes happen. Yes, you can. And as Vishal mentioned before, data is something which analytics is something which has been going since long, which will keep on going, and it is present in anything and everything we do. Any domain, every domain, there is data science, being the predictive analytics, being uh, automation tools, whatever it is. So you will always have a chance to implement it in your current field or in your new field. And yes, that was my answer. I hope that helps. Over to you, Mahima.
I hope Richa and Bablu got their queries, resolved. And we'll be winding up this session. I hope all your questions and queries got answered. And if there still are any queries or questions, you can write us at hello@herowired.com. I'll be putting it into the chat box as well. Okay. And one of our learning consultants will be, calling you and will be helping you out with your queries. So thank you so much, Bishal. Thank you so much, Aditya, for being into this webinar. And we thank you everyone for taking out your precious time in order to join this webinar. We'll be connecting soon.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you
Have
all.
a good day.
All the very best.
Thank you.